Millions of Americans took to the streets over the weekend to protest the actions of the Trump administration, which came as the president held a military parade in Washington, D.C. NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has more.
From Los Angeles to Atlanta to Chicago and in the nation's capital, organizers say more than 5 million Americans poured into the streets under the banner of No Kings, with the goal of sending President Donald Trump a message about the direction of his administration.
I didn't expect to be fighting fascism in my 50s.
The protests were in part a response to the administration's decision to host a grand military parade in Washington in honor of the Army's 250th birthday, which just happened to coincide with President Trump's birthday. Trump telling the crowd the day was about America's fighting force.
Every other country celebrates their victories. It's about time America did too.
The parade crowds were moderate amid intermittent rain and intense security all around the route, with those there calling the event a success.
It's patriotic. It's amazing.
But that celebration was juxtaposed by a mass mobilization in other parts of the country.
We just feel like that our democracy is in danger.
Protesters in thousands of demonstrations nationwide accusing President Trump of attempting to amass too much power and targeting innocent people in the administration's sweeping mass deportation program.
Well, we haven't had a king since 1776. We want to keep it that way.
Though largely peaceful, police say one person died when gunfire erupted at a protest in Salt Lake City, while in some others, demonstrators clashed with law enforcement. More than 30 were arrested in Denver. And in Los Angeles, after days of tension and conflict, police accusing protesters of throwing rocks, bottles, and fireworks at officers. The city's downtown area remains under an 8 p.m. curfew as police attempt to keep the peace.
NBC's Ryan Nobles with that report. And joining us now, Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. She's a member of the Senate Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committees and is also an Iraq War veteran and recipient of the Purple Heart. Senator, thank you so much for being here this morning. The vast majority of these No Kings protests were very peaceful and the crowds were huge. White House officials tell me that the crowd at the military parade, not what they had hoped, certainly smaller than expected. What are your thoughts as a veteran about that spectacle we saw this weekend, about the military, the Army being honored for its 250th birthday, but also falling on President Trump's birthday?
Yeah, this was not about the Army's 250th birthday. If you wanted to celebrate the Army's 250th birthday and spend $60 million, you could have spent it on tuition for our troops, funding for military families. You could feed all the homeless veterans in this country. So if you truly wanted to celebrate the Army's 250th birthday, then spend the money the correct way, not with a parade for a tin-pot dictator wannabe, which is what Donald Trump is. I felt that it was obscene to have done that at a time when we're trying to cut funding for VA, when we're firing people from their jobs in federal government, and frankly, we're the greatest military on the face of the earth. We don't need a parade to prove it.
And others pointed out the juxtaposition of the parade with ongoing conflicts around the globe. And let's turn to the Middle East. You, of course, served in Iraq. What is your assessment, what you've seen so far in this, is the Israel's attack on Iran? Iran has hit back a little bit. We've seen some of their rockets landed. Do you sort of support what you're seeing here from Prime Minister Netanyahu in this attack?
Well, let's start off by the fact that I support Israel's right to defend herself. Israel is in a very, very scary neighborhood, and Israel is our only true, real ally in the Middle East. That said, we got here because Donald Trump pulled us out of the Iran nuclear deal, allowed Iran to continue to work towards refining more uranium, grow their nuclear program. So it's not surprising that Israel would hit back. That said, we need to urge both sides to work towards peace. We do not need the Middle East to flare up into another full-blown conflict. I think that Iran probably underestimated what was going to happen. It seems like Israel has decapitated much of their leadership, especially when it comes to the nuclear development program. But, you know, Donald Trump is supposed to be a deal maker, right? And yet he couldn't bring both sides to the table and prevent this from happening.
Yeah, he's still pushing for those talks. I want to get your opinion on what we talked about last segment with former General McCaffrey, ex-CIA analyst, about the idea that probably the U.S. would have to assist with a B-52 and these bunker busting bombs if Israel was to really go after the deepest Iranian nuclear facility. Would you be in favor of that move?
I have to see what the conditions are. I don't usually commit to a vote beforehand. I would like to see what it is. I have always supported packages to help Israel, especially those defensive packages. I worry about getting the United States embroiled in yet another Middle East conflict that can last 10, 20 years. Look at what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. But I stand by our ally Israel because they are the true allies that we have. They provide us with intelligence. They have been there for the United States. I happen to think Netanyahu is a war criminal. I don't trust him. And this is where if we had somebody who was competent in the White House, somebody who's competent in the Department of Defense, somebody who's competent at actually negotiating deals, I would have more confidence. But right now, I don't have a lot of trust in the White House and its ability to actually bring this to a resolution.
Let's quickly hit a couple matters here at home. Over the weekend, last night, President Trump on Truth Social doubled down on ICE raids we saw in Los Angeles. He says he wants to expand that to a variety of blue cities, name-checking one in your home state, Chicago.
Yeah. Well, because he's using these for his political expediency, right? He's doing this. He's ginning up the unrest. He is separating American-born children from their families. I'm all for deporting violent criminals. Let's deport the felons. Let's deport the violent criminals. But that's not what he's doing. He's actually doing political theater in order to come up with a pretext in which he can send in the National Guard, so he can send in the United States Marines. We just had to evacuate our embassy in Iraq. That's where the Marines should be, protecting Americans abroad. They shouldn't be on the streets of our country turning their weapons on fellow Americans. It is completely un-American. But this is all Donald Trump's doing.
And Senator, in our final 30 seconds here, this terrible incident in Minnesota, 2 state lawmakers shot, 1 killed. Just your concerns about the rise in political violence that we're seeing across the country.
It's not acceptable. The rise in political violence is not acceptable. When I was elected, some people voted for me, some people did not vote for me, but I represent everybody in the state of Illinois. We should be working to bring down the level of rhetoric, the level of targeting of one another, and that starts with every one of us that's elected. But it also starts at the White House. The president can't go out there and make the statements he is. Some of my colleagues are making some pretty questionable statements on social media. That has no place in American politics or anywhere in America.
Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois. Senator, thank you so much for being with us this morning.